Day. Hotep, hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So it is Sunday, August 7th, 2022, and we are live. Welcome to the African History Network show. And normally we're on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF, but they had a scheduling conflict today. So we're not live on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. There's no live shows tonight. But we're broadcasting here on my own social media platforms, okay? And this show will be audio podcasted as well. We're on 9 or 10 different audio podcast platforms, including iHeartRadio, okay? All right, so on today's show, we have a update on the in the Breonna Taylor case out of Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. We know Breonna Taylor was shot and killed March 13th, 2020. And we saw this past week that actually we got the news on Thursday. There was a press conference that Attorney General Merrick Garland held along with Assistant Attorney General of the Civil Rights Department, Kristen Clark. They held a press conference announcing that 4 officers involved in the killing of Breonna Taylor are going to face federal charges. Now, we posted about this on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and I shared also on our fan page the press conference that took place as well. Now, we're going to air that press conference here on today's show also. It's extremely important for us to understand this. This is an example of how elections have consequences. This indictment of these 4 police officers would not have happened under a Donald Trump Department of Justice. Under a Donald Trump Department of Justice with Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, or Attorney General William Barr. The only reason why this indictment is taking place is because African Americans and Latinos and 49 million white people went out and voted in the 2020 presidential election. Okay, so we're going to give you an update on what's taking place there. Also, Brittney Griner was sentenced to 9.5 years in a Russian prison on trumped-up charges dealing with her having residue of hashish in Russia. Okay, so we're going to talk about this as well. I should say cannabis as well. Brittney Griner was convicted on drug charges in Russia, with a judge sentencing her to 9 years in a penal colony. Calls for Brittney Griner have escalated, and her lawyers said they plan to file an appeal. Okay, so it's suspected now that the real negotiations will begin now that she has been sentenced. She was convicted and sentenced. However, the ball is in Russia's court. The U.S. is at a disadvantage when it comes to bargaining with Russia, because basically Russia holds most of the cards. Okay, it moves at the speed that Russia wants it to move at. So this is what we're dealing with. So we're going to give you an update on that story also. Okay. Then we got the news today that Roger E. Mosley, who we all know as TC on the TV show Magnum P.I, Roger E. Mosley passed away at the age of 83. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We got that news today about Roger E. Mosley. And he was also in the movie The Mac as well. African-American actor Roger E. Mosley. He was in the movie The Mac. Also remember him on an episode of Sanford and Son, where he came to work for Fred Sanford when Lamont got a job working for Big Nose Backstrom, who was another junk dealer, and he was a white guy. He was a bigot, Big Nose Backstrom. We remember Roger E. Mosley on that episode of Sanford and Son. Also, he passed away at the age of 83. Okay. He played the role of Theodore Calvin, the helicopter pilot, and buddy of Tom Selleck's character, Magnum P.I. So we'll talk some about Roger E. Mosley as well. We have a jam-packed show today. And also, there was a story that I saw earlier in the week. We posted about this on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. And this dealt with Tyler Perry and actor and director Tyler Perry and the great Cicely Tyson. The great Cicely Tyson. TheGrill.com has an article dealing with how Tyler Perry paid Cicely Tyson $1 million in 2007 for one day of work. That was on the movie Why Did I Get Married? The first Why Did I Get Married movie. He paid her $1 million for one day of work. When she did the movie Sounder in the early 1970s, she only made $6,000 for that movie Sounder. Okay. So this is a great story about the generosity, once again, of Tyler Perry. So we're going to talk about that as well. Now, we got an update on the lawsuit of the three survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And we talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I was on Roland's show on Tuesday and on Friday. Okay, Roland's producer called me, or his booker called me on Tuesday in a panic. And it was about 4:45 p.m. because I was actually on my way to go vote. I was me and asked me if I could come on and Roland's show that day. Okay, I'll do the show. All right, hold on. Looks like okay, are we still live? We should still be live. Okay, loss of connection. All right, um so I was on Roland's show. I was on Roland Martin's show on Tuesday and on Friday of this week. Okay. Roland's booker called me Tuesday about 4:45 p.m. asked if I could do the show, and I said okay, I could do it on Tuesday, and I was also on Friday. Now on Friday we talked about the three survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre, uh, their lawsuit seeking reparations for having lost everything during the Tulsa Race Massacre. Their lawsuit is able to proceed. Their lawsuit is able to proceed. We spoke with one of their attorneys, Demario Solomon Simmons, who is also a panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered. He came on the show Friday to give us an update on the case. Okay, so we'll talk about that, and I'm going to share an excerpt of that show as well. I'll share an excerpt of that interview that we did with Demario Solomon Simmons. Tulsa judge allows 1921 race massacre lawsuit to move forward. Tulsa judge allows 1921 Tulsa race massacre lawsuit to move forward. Now, also, it's important to understand that the other part of this lawsuit was dealing with the descendants of the Tulsa race massacre, and they had a lawsuit seeking reparations. The descendants, not the three survivors, but the descendants. The descendants were denied the ability to sue for reparations, but the three survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre, their lawsuit is allowed to continue. So that is a victory there as well. That the lawsuit is allowed to continue. So we'll talk about that on today's show as well. I'll let you hear a segment from Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, so we have a jam-packed show, and there's a couple other topics that I'm going to squeeze in here as well. Now, we got an update dealing with Emmett Till also this week, and give me a minute here. I'm trying to monitor the broadcast. Okay, so we got an update this week dealing with Emmett Till. Okay, Carolyn Bryant Donham was seen for the first time in 20 years publicly. Okay, in just a second here, I'm trying to see what's going on. The screen is freezing up. Okay, stand by. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay, you listen to you're watching the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF. Well, we're not on 9:10. All right, so we're back. Okay, good. Okay. We got a update. We got an update this week dealing with the with Emmett Till. Okay. Carolyn Bryant Donham. Carolyn Bryant Donham, basically the only known witness involved in the surviving witness involved in the killing of Emmett Till, is involved in that case. She was seen for the first time in 20 years publicly. She was seen for the first time in 20 years publicly. And she is living in Kentucky. She's cancer stricken. She's gone blind. She's living in hospice care at her home in Kentucky. The Daily Mail has an article about this. We're going to give you a quick update on that. Carolyn Bryant Donham, seen for the first time in 20 years publicly, as she lives out final days cancer stricken in hospice at her Kentucky home. Okay, so we'll give you an update on that as well. And then also the breaking story that came out today, and the Senate Democrats were in the uh, markup section, the vote-a-rama. They were in that session for about 20 hours. Senate Democrats passed a $740 billion Inflation Reduction Act bill today. We're going to give you a brief breakdown of what's in that bill. Is going to tackle climate change, is going to tackle inflation. This is a huge win for Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration, but it's also a huge win for Americans as well. No Republican in the House or the Senate voted for this bill. No Republican in the House or the Senate voted for this bill. And yes, Senator Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, yes, they both voted for this bill. Okay, so we're going to break this down here on the African History Network show as well. Now, some of you all saw that or heard I was on Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show. I was on for 2 hours on Wednesday. You know, I told you, maybe if you listen to his show, and his show is carried across the country, about 30 cities across the country, nationally syndicated radio show, Keeping It Real. I was on his show August 3rd, 2022, and he had me on for 2 hours. I was his guest co-host. And you know, I told you that he said live on the air that he wants me to be on his show once a week. So he had me on for the first time. The person that does his show on Wednesdays couldn't do it. His producer called me, said, okay, Reverend Now is going to have you on. We'll have you on for 2 hours. So hopefully I'll be on each week or every other week or something, but I appreciate the opportunity. It went well. I talked to some people who heard it, and they said I did a good job. They liked the information I shared as well. And when I was at the Obama Weekend Festival that James C. Ford hosted at Barack Obama Academy here in Detroit, I was there on Saturday. You know, we had him on our show last Sunday. I was there on Saturday. I talked to some people who actually heard me on Reverend Al Sharpton's show as well. Okay, so we have a lot to cover today, not a lot of time to do it in, and we haven't one moment to lose, as they used to say on the Batman TV show, right? the original Batman show from the 60s. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word KEMET, KEMET, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word KEMET, KEMET, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, or our new website, TheAHNShow.com, TheAHNShow.com. Okay, I'm also going to set up, since we're not on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF today, and because I still have, we still have our Blog Talk Radio channel, the African History Network show on Blog Talk Radio. So I'm going to set up a live Blog Talk Radio broadcast, because I pay for it each month. So I might as well use this live. And you all can call in live also here. Let me set this up. We want to go live now. I'll give you the call-in number here in just a minute. You can also listen on Blog Talk Radio as well. Just search for the African History Network show. Okay, so we'll get that going here in just a second. Let me see if we could do the direct connection. It's been a minute since I've done this. All right, so let's go with that. All right, I want to go to our first story here. How's everybody doing today? Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Okay, share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Let me see here. Where is the... Okay. All right, hold on. Where's the board? Okay, it should start up. Okay, let's go. I want to go to the press conference that took place on Thursday, April 4th, dealing with the okay, I want to go to the press conference. All right, that's Blog Talk Radio. Okay, here is a from Andrea Mitchell's show announcing the hold on. Here's an excerpt from Andrea Mitchell's show announcing the charges filed against the 4 officers. Okay, let's go to this clip here in just a second. Just a second, let me cue this up. Stand by.
The Department of Justice has charged 4 current and former Louisville, Kentucky police officers with federal crimes related to the Breonna Taylor's death.
Members of the Place-Based Investigations Unit falsified the affidavit used to obtain the search warrant of Ms. Taylor's home, that this act violated federal civil rights laws, and that those violations resulted in Ms. Taylor's death. Specifically, we allege that Ms. Taylor's Fourth Amendment rights were violated when defendants Joshua James, Kyle Meany, and Kelly Goodlatte sought a warrant to search Ms. Taylor's home, knowing that the officers lacked probable cause for the search.
I'm going to go right to NBC's Ken Delaney, and also with me, former U.S. Attorney Barbara McCrae. Ken, the Attorney General said that Breonna Taylor should have been alive today. Take us through the details of these indictments.
Yeah, Andrea, this is a major, major indictment by the Department of Justice today in a case where no one was charged by the state directly in Breonna Taylor's death. Recall that one officer was charged with wantonly firing his weapon in a way that endangered neighbors, but was acquitted. So what we have in front of us today is a civil rights set of civil rights charges against three officers that the Justice Department says conspired to falsify the warrant application that led those officers to raid that house and where Breonna Taylor was sleeping. And recall that her boyfriend thought there were intruders, had a weapon, fired a warning shot, and then officers poured fire into that apartment, and Breonna Taylor was killed. And so the lead officer, the lead detective who has been fired by the Louisville Police Department, Joshua Janes, wrote in the March 2020 warrant application that he verified with the U.S. Postal Inspector that Taylor's ex-boyfriend, a man suspected of dealing drugs, received packages at her address. An internal investigation found that James did not personally verify that information, and he instead relied on another officer's word that proved to be false. And that was an internal police investigation. He's now been charged with civil rights violations based on those facts, Andrea. And the Justice Department also alleged that these men conspired to mislead state, local, and federal investigators as they tried to piece together what happened here. So some very major charges in a case that has really provoked a lot of angst and protest in that community in Louisville.
Okay, so that was from Andrea Mitchell's show.
You can save more.
Let me close this up. That was from Andrea Mitchell's show on MSNBC. That was from Thursday, April 4th, 2022. If we look at this article quickly, and then I'm going to go to the press conference that the Department of Justice had, and we also got to hear from Kristen Clark, the Assistant Attorney General of the Civil Rights Department, African-American female, brilliant attorney, Kristen Clark. We're going to go to that press conference here in just a minute. But if we look at this article here from the Washington Post, okay, 4 officers involved in Breonna Taylor's killing face federal charges. 4 officers in Breonna Taylor's killing face federal charges. They are the first charges in connection with Breonna Taylor's killing, which sparked racial justice protests across the country. Okay, now once again, for all those people out there that have no understanding of politics, they get on social media and say voting doesn't matter because you don't read. This is an example of how elections have consequences and voting absolutely matters. And if voting didn't matter, why do Republicans work so hard to suppress the African American vote? You would not have had these charges filed under a Donald Trump Department of Justice. Not only that, only one investigation into the patterns and practices of police departments under the Donald Trump Department of Justice because they backed out of investigating police departments. That was one of the first things that Attorney General Jeff Sessions did. I think it was about February 2017. He made an announcement, a change in the policy from the previous Department of Justice under the Obama administration that they were going to back off of investigating the patterns or practices of police departments. Also keep in mind that so under the Obama administration, there's about 24, 25 investigations into the patterns or practices of police departments. It led to about 14 or 15 consent decrees like the Chicago Police Department, Baltimore Police Department, etc. There was only one investigation under the Trump administration. Now, there have been, I think, 4 investigations announced so far under the Attorney General Merrick Garland Department of Justice. April of 2021, they announced an investigation into the Louisville Police Department. Okay, so remember that. We talked about that here on this show, April of 2021. And there was an article on this here. We'll pull this up for you. Also, you can call in. The call-in number is 914-338-1375, 914-338-1375. Press the number 1 key to put you in queue. You can call in and talk to me, or you can listen because we're broadcasting through Blog Talk Radio, also my Blog Talk Radio channel. 914-338-1375. So if you just want to call in and listen to the show, you can call that number. If you want to come on the air and talk live, call that number and press the number 1 key to put you in queue so I can see that you want to come on the air. I want to pull up this article here because it's important for us to draw a direct line between voting and policy. And when I was on Reverend Al Sharpton's show on Wednesday, we talked about this, okay? There was, and I deal with this every Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. If we look at this here, for instance, this is at the Department of Justice website, justice.gov, Monday, April 26, 2021. I encourage people to go to the Department of Justice website, okay, because they have a lot of good information there. And we're going to cite some information from the Department of Justice website also on today's show. So this is from Monday, April 26, 2021. Now, the Department of Justice website, justice.gov, very simple, very easy to remember, justice.gov. And the Department of Justice was founded in 1870, largely to enforce the new rights that African Americans had because of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. And they were founded during Reconstruction, 1870. This is why the Department of Justice. But Monday, April 26, 2021, the Department of Justice announced an investigation into the Louisville, Jefferson County Metro Government and Louisville Metro Police Department. And this was largely sparked by the killing of Breonna Taylor. Okay. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced today that the Department of Justice has opened a pattern or practice investigation into the Louisville, Jefferson County Metro Government and the Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, Louisville Metro Police Department. Investigation will assess all types of force used by the Louisville Metro Police Department, including use of force on individuals with behavioral health disabilities or individuals engaged in activities protected by the First Amendment, or individuals engaged in activities protected by the First Amendment. Now, the investigation will assess whether the Louisville Metro Police Department engages in discriminatory policing and also whether it conducts unreasonable stops, search, seizures, and arrests both during patrols and in obtaining and executing search warrants for private homes. Now, this was April 26, 2021. This is under the Merrick Garland Department of Justice. This investigation would have never happened under the Donald Trump Department of Justice, under Jeff Sessions or William Barr. Because remember, Breonna Taylor was killed March 13th, 2020, while Donald Trump was in office. The Department of Justice did not launch an investigation into the patterns or practices of the Louisville Metro Police Department. Biden takes the oath of office January 20th, 2020. 3 months later, you have an investigation into the Louisville Metro Police Department. Okay, this is an example of how elections have consequences. So it's important to understand when we deal with pattern or practice investigation. Okay, it was the U.S. Congress that gave the Department of Justice the authority to investigate police departments, that to do those patterns or practices investigations. It was the U.S. Congress that gave the Department of Justice the authority to do that. What law, what bill was passed that gave the Department of Justice the authority to launch pattern or practices investigations into police departments? It was the 1994 Crime Act, the crime bill, 1994 crime bill, signed into law September 13th, 1994. That was part of the crime bill. It wasn't just the assault weapons ban. It wasn't just the Violence Against Women Act. This was also part of it as well. That gave the Department of Justice the ability to investigate police departments like this, and then enter into consent decrees with police departments for reforms with oversight from a federal judge. Okay, that came from the 1994 crime bill, just so people understand. All right, now, the investigation, now once again, this is Monday, April 26, 2021, press release from the U.S. Department of Justice about an investigation into the Louisville Metro Police Department. Okay, this is 3 months after Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are sworn into office. The investigation will assess whether the Louisville Metro Police Department engages in discriminatory policing, and also whether it conducts unreasonable stops, searches, and seizures and arrests both during patrol activities and in obtaining and executing search warrants for private homes, and in obtaining and executing search warrants for private homes. So we see that the charges filed this past Thursday, August 4th, by the Department of Justice deals with how the police officers got the search warrant, because they're saying that some of the police officers, not all of them involved in executing the warrant, but some of those police officers, they're saying, lied about the evidence that they had to get a search warrant, okay, to affect a search warrant on Breonna Taylor's apartment. Now, the investigation will include a comprehensive review of the Louisville Metro Police Department's policies, training, and supervision, as well as LMPD's systems of accountability, including misconduct, complaint intake, investigation, review, disposition, and discipline. Now, Attorney General Merrick Garland, in this press release, April 26, 2021, said there are approximately 18,000 federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies in this country. It's about 18,500. In each one, dedicated officers put themselves in harm's way to protect others. Promoting public trust between communities and law enforcement is essential to making both communities and policing safer. Our enforcement efforts, as well as our grant making and other support, will contribute to achieving that end and to protecting the civil rights of everyone in our country. End quote. So reader, this is the press release announcing, this is from Monday, April 26, 2021. The Department of Justice announced an investigation into the patterns or practices of the Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government and Louisville Metro Police Department. Okay. Then on August 4th, 2022, you have the announcement of charges against the 4 police officers. Okay. 4 officers involved in Breonna Taylor's killing face charges. Now, this is a separate, so the investigation into the patterns or practices of police department, Louisville Metro Police Department, that is a separate investigation from this right here. Okay. This one here, they announced charges against these 4 officers. So I want to go to the press conference that took place August 4th. And you're going to hear Attorney General Merrick Garland, and then you're also going to hear Kristen Clark, who is the Assistant Attorney General of the Civil Rights Department.
Good morning, everyone. Earlier today, I spoke with the family of Breonna Taylor. This morning, they were informed that the Justice Department has charged 4 current and former Louisville Metro Police Department officers with federal crimes related to Ms. Taylor's death. Those alleged crimes include civil rights offenses, unlawful conspiracies, unconstitutional use of force, and obstruction offenses. The 4 defendants were charged through 2 separate indictments and 1 information. I'm going to begin today by discussing the civil rights offenses that stem from the falsification of a search warrant. We allege that these offenses resulted in Ms. Taylor's death. These charges focus on the conduct of the Louisville Metro Police Department's Place-Based Investigations Unit. In the first indictment filed today, we allege that in early 2020, that unit was investigating suspected drug trafficking in the west end of Louisville. On March 12, 2020, officers from that unit sought 5 search warrants they claimed were related to the suspected drug trafficking. 4 of those warrants targeted properties in the West End where that activity was allegedly occurring. A 5th search warrant was for Breonna Taylor's home, which was approximately 10 miles away from the West End. The federal charges announced today allege that members of the Place-Based Investigations Unit falsified the affidavit used to obtain the search warrant of Ms. Taylor's home, that this act violated federal civil rights laws, and that those violations resulted in Ms. Taylor's death. Specifically, we allege that Ms. Taylor's Fourth Amendment rights were violated when defendants Joshua Janes, Kyle Meany, and Kelly Goodlett sought a warrant to search Ms. Taylor's home knowing that the officers lacked probable cause for the search. We allege that the defendants knew the affidavit in support of that warrant contained false and misleading information and that it omitted material information. Among other things, the affidavit falsely claimed that officers had verified that the target of the alleged drug trafficking operation had received packages at Ms. Taylor's address. In fact, defendants Janes and Goodlett knew that was not true. We further allege that defendants Janes and Meany knew the search warrant would be carried out by armed LMPD officers and that conducting that search could create a dangerous situation for anyone who happened to be in Ms. Taylor's home. As outlined in the charging documents, the officers who ultimately carried out the search at Ms. Taylor's apartment were not involved in the drafting of the warrant and were unaware of the false and misleading statements it contained. When those officers executed the search warrant, Ms. Taylor was at home with another person who was in lawful possession of a handgun. When officers broke down the door to Ms. Taylor's apartment, that person, believing that intruders were breaking in, immediately fired 1 shot, hitting the first officer at the door. 2 officers immediately fired a total of 22 shots into the apartment. One of those shots hit Ms. Taylor in the chest and killed her. We allege that the defendants knew their actions in falsifying the affidavit could create a dangerous situation, and we allege these unlawful acts resulted in Ms. Taylor's death. The charges announced today also allege that the officers responsible for falsifying the affidavit that led to the search took steps to cover up their unlawful conduct after Ms. Taylor was killed. We allege that defendants Janes and Goodlett conspired to knowingly falsify an investigative document that was created after Ms. Taylor's death. We also allege that they conspired to mislead federal, state, and local authorities who were investigating the incident. For example, we allege that in May 2020, those 2 defendants met in a garage where they agreed to tell investigators a false story. This indictment separately alleges that defendant Meany lied to the FBI during its investigation of this matter. Another indictment filed today alleges that after Ms. Taylor was shot, another LMPD officer, defendant Brett Hankison, moved from the doorway to the side of her apartment and fired 10 more shots through a window and a sliding glass door, both of which were covered with blinds and curtains. Defendant Hankison has been charged with 2 civil rights offenses, alleging that he willfully used unconstitutionally excessive force while acting in his official capacity as an officer. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark will speak more about that aspect of the case. As in any case, the charges we announce today are allegations, and all defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Before I close, I want to thank Assistant Attorney General Clark, her team in the Civil Rights Division, and the case agents at the FBI for their tireless work on this case. We share, but we cannot fully imagine, the grief felt by Breonna Taylor's loved ones and all of those affected by the events of March 13th, 2020. Breonna Taylor should be alive today. The Justice Department is committed to defending and protecting the civil rights of every person in this country. That was this department's founding purpose, and it remains our urgent mission. Attorney General Clark. Assistant Attorney General Clark.
Since the founding of our nation, the Bill of Rights to the United States Constitution has...
Let me just pause it right here for a second. For all those people like Alan who posted here, an indictment is not the same as a conviction, so don't jump and click your heels yet. How the hell do you get to a conviction without an indictment? You have to have an indictment first before you can get to a conviction. This is a huge step. Talk to Breonna Taylor's mother. Watch the press conference that Attorney Benjamin Crump did along with Breonna Taylor's mother. That's a huge relief to her. Yes, it's not a conviction yet. You can't get to a conviction without an indictment. The Department of Justice is doing something that Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron was too much of a coward to do, to indict these officers. The only reason why you have this indictment is because 81 million people voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. 61% of Joe Biden's votes came from white people. That was 49 million votes. And then there were 20% of his votes came from African Americans. That was 16.9 million. 12% of his votes came from Latinos. That was 9.7 million. If this indictment would not have happened under the Trump administration. You can't get to a conviction without an indictment. This is a huge step forward because the black attorney general of Kentucky, who's a Republican, was too much of a punk coward to indict these officers. Let's continue. Let me back this up for a minute.
Since the founding of our nation, the Bill of Rights to the United States Constitution has guaranteed that all people have a right to be secure in their homes, free from false warrants, unreasonable searches, and the use of unjustifiable and excessive force by the police. Breonna Taylor should have awakened in her home as usual on the morning of March 13th, 2020. Tragically, she did not. She was just 26 years old. As Attorney General Garland just stated, today's indictments allege that Louisville Police Detective Joshua Janes and Sergeant Kyle Meany drafted and approved what they knew was a false affidavit to support a search warrant for Ms. Taylor's home. That false affidavit set in motion events that led to Ms. Taylor's death when other LMPD officers executed that warrant. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution ensures that people are subject to searches only when there is probable cause supporting a search warrant. Falsified warrants create unnecessary hazards for the public and for the police, who rely on facts that fellow officers report in carrying out their public duties. The indictment alleges that by preparing a false affidavit to secure a search warrant for Breonna Taylor's homes, defendants Janes and Meany willfully deprived Breonna Taylor of her constitutional right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. and we allege that Ms. Taylor's death resulted from that violation. In a separate indictment, the grand jury charges former LMPD Detective Brett Hankison with using unconstitutionally excessive force during the raid on Ms. Taylor's home. Without a lawful objective justifying the use of deadly force, Defendant Hankison traveled away from Ms. Taylor's doorway to the side of the building and fired 10 shots into Breonna Taylor's apartment through a bedroom window and a sliding glass door that were both covered with blinds and curtains. Community safety dictates that police officers use their weapons only when necessary to defend their own lives or the lives of others, and even then, that they must do so with great care and caution. Today's indictment alleges that Hankison's use of excessive force violated the rights of Breonna Taylor and her guest, and also of her neighbors whose lives were endangered by bullets that penetrated into their apartment. Attorney General Garland often underscores that at the Justice Department, we are to follow the facts and the law. And today, after a full and comprehensive investigation, the facts and law have brought us here to these indictments. I want to commend our team who spent hundreds of hours gathering facts regarding this tragedy. No stone was left unturned. These indictments reflect the department's commitment to preserving the integrity of the criminal justice system and to protecting the constitutional rights of every American. Independent from these criminal charges, a separate team from the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division is conducting a civil investigation into whether the Louisville Metro Police Department is engaging in a pattern or practice of law enforcement misconduct. We're looking at whether the LMPD uses excessive force, improper searches, or racially discriminatory policing. That ongoing investigation is separate from today's charges. In closing, I extend condolences to Breonna Taylor's family and loved ones. Today, we acknowledge the loss of her life. We recognize her dignity and recommit ourselves to the pursuit of justice.
Two questions, really just two. I was wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit on sort of the top line things that you're finding in the pattern of practice investigation so far. And secondly, this question's for the AG. With Brittney Griner's trial likely wrapping up shortly in Russia, do you expect Ms. Griner and Trevor Reed to be traded for Victor Bout, and do you support such an exchange? Do you expect other prisoner swaps? 3 questions.
You know I was counting. Yeah, I'll take the second question. Like, all I can say is, as the Secretary of State has said, that Ms. Griner was unlawfully detained, and beyond that, I really can't comment. I'm going to let Assistant Attorney General Clark answer the question about the pattern of practice investigation.
Our pattern or practice investigation into the police department is ongoing. Our team has been on the ground conducting interviews with stakeholders, members of the police department, engaging in ride-alongs, reviewing documents and data. We will share more once that investigation has concluded.
Yes, thank you. The only officer in Louisville who has faced charges locally was acquitted, and that's Brett Hankison. Did the Justice Department feel compelled to step in part because you believe justice was not served on the local level? And do you believe the fact that prosecutors did not charge any of the officers except Hankison, and he was cleared of those charges, will make your case more difficult?
The Justice Department brings charges, including charges where they've been brought before, when we believe substantial federal interests have not been vindicated and need to be vindicated. This case charges violations of federal offenses. Obviously, the state did not, and that explains our determination in this case.
Do you think it'll make it more difficult, though, that this Hankison was acquitted? And the other folks were not charged?
I have every degree of confidence in our prosecutors and investigators in this case.
Catherine here, CBS News. Attorney General, was there a piece of evidence or a witness that really drove the department's decision to fast track the Breonna Taylor case?
Well, this investigation has been going on urgently. It's run by career prosecutors and investigators. It's a complex case, as you can even tell by the 3 charging documents we filed today. And today is the day when we were ready to bring those charges.
If I could, a news of the day question. The grand jury here in Washington has issued subpoenas for top members of the Trump administration. Is there a window to bring charges in that investigation before the midterms?
This is something I can't comment about. I'm sorry.
Mr. Attorney General, does Donald Trump, as a former president, have any ability to block testimony of witnesses who are testifying in a criminal grand jury investigation by asserting executive privilege?
No, I'm afraid I'm going to give you the same answer I just gave, which is I'm not able to comment about that. Thank you.
Does any former president?
All right.
All right. So that was the press conference that took place Thursday, August 4th, 2022. That is from the Department of Justice YouTube channel. I encourage people to go to the Department of Justice YouTube channel because all the press conferences and things like that are there. We have to become more educated. Saying stupid things like an indictment is not the same as a conviction. We know that, but you can't get to a conviction without an indictment, you simple Simon ass. Don't come here with that nonsense. Go somewhere else with that. This indictment is monumental. An indictment would not have happened under the Trump administration. Okay, so my mom doesn't like me saying simple Simon ass, but some people just need to be called. Sometimes you just gotta call it like it is. All right. Okay, so 914-338-1375. 914-338-1375 is the call-in number. If you have a question or comment, press the number 1 key to put you in queue so it can bring you on the air. 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF. They're not broadcasting live tonight. I found that out when I called into the radio station to do the show. I talked to Jalen, my board operator. I called him at home, and he said he sent out an email earlier this week saying that they weren't going to be live tonight. I don't know. I missed the email. Okay, I missed the email. I did Roland Martin Unfiltered on Tuesday. I did Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show Wednesday for 2 hours. I did Roland Martin's show again on Friday, my normal Friday slot, and I missed the email. Okay, now I want to go back to this article here from the Washington Post very quickly, and then I want to get to a little bit of the history of the Department of Justice, because the U.S. Department of Justice was created in 1870 during Reconstruction, and it was created largely to enforce the rights and protect the new rights of African Americans in this country during Reconstruction. If we look at this article here from the Washington Post, NBC News, ABC, they have articles on this as well. So those articles you can read for free. I have paid subscriptions to all these different news outlets: New York Times, Washington Post. I just got a new subscription to Time Magazine, National Geographic. I just paid them. So I monitor about 35 different news sources on a daily basis. If we go to page 2 of this, page 3, looks like page 3 of this article here from Washington Post, 4 officers involved in Breonna Taylor's killing face federal charges. If we go to, I want to go to page 3 and the paragraph dealing with the federal indictments. Let's see, let's scroll down here. So this is from the press conference. So you tell Breonna Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, that this indictment doesn't mean anything. You tell her that. That's not what she said at the press conference. This indictment is huge. The federal indictments described officers from the Louisville Police Department's place-based investigations unit as pursuing a reckless narcotics trafficking case in the city's West End, a reckless narcotics trafficking case in the city's West End, allegedly conspiring to falsify information on a search warrant affidavit, allegedly conspiring to falsify information on a search warrant affidavit, even though they knew it could place occupants of Breonna Taylor's apartment in danger, even though they knew it could place occupants of Breonna Taylor's apartment in danger. Now, this is former Officer Joshua James. Okay, and this is Officer Sergeant Kyle Meany. Now, in the first indictment unsealed on Thursday, prosecutors allege that Joshua James and Sergeant Kyle Meany, Joshua James, 40 years old, Kyle Meany, 35, relied on false, misleading, and outdated information, in seeking the warrant. Although Officer Joshua James did not participate in the actual raid, he sought to pressure colleagues afterward to make misleading statements to investigators. He sought to pressure colleagues afterwards to make misleading statements to investigators that the indictment alleges. Now, Sergeant Kyle Meany is accused of falsely telling FBI agents that a provision in the affidavit seeking a no-knock warrant was included at the request of the Louisville Police SWAT unit. Okay? He's accused of falsely telling FBI agents that a provision in the affidavit seeking a no-knock warrant was included at the request of the Louisville Police SWAT unit. Now, a separate Justice Department charging document accuses Officer Goodlett of conspiring with Officer James to falsify the search warrant and cover up their actions afterwards. Attorney General Merrick Garland alleged that Officer Goodlett and Officer James, Jaynes, met in a garage after Breonna Taylor's killing and conspired to lie to investigators about the circumstances that led to Breonna Taylor's killing. They're going all in this. This was hundreds of hours of investigating this case, investigating the killing, putting all these pieces together. Now, Officer Hankinson, who's 46 years old, is accused of willfully using unconstitutional force for firing shots through Breonna Taylor's patio door, which was covered with blinds and a blackout curtain during the raid. So he couldn't see what was inside. He's just shooting inside. He fired 10 shots. If I remember correctly, he fired 10 shots. This is according to the second indictment. He is also accused of depriving several residents of nearby apartments of their rights after bullets punctured the walls of their units. Now, if convicted, Officer Hankinson faces a maximum sentence of life in prison since the violation he is charged with resulted in death or involves an attempt to kill. Since the violation he is charged with resulted, quote, in death or involves an attempt to kill. Now, according to the Justice Department, now the obstruction counts carry a maximum sentence. Obstruction of justice carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison, and the conspiracy counts and false statement charge carry a maximum of 5 years in prison. Now, Officer James was previously fired by the Louisville Police Department for allegedly violating department policies and preparing the warrant for Breonna Taylor's home. Now, Yvette Gentry, then the interim police chief, wrote in a pre-termination letter that Officer James had lied when he wrote in the warrant application that he had verified through a U.S. postal inspector that Breonna Taylor was getting packages related to alleged drug activity of her ex-boyfriend. So the officer allegedly lied when it came to this information. Officer Janice had, in the pre-termination letter from the then interim police chief, Yvette Gentry, it stated that when Officer Janice wrote in the warrant application that he had verified through a U.S. postal inspector that Breonna Taylor was getting packages related to alleged drug activity, the pre-termination letter is stating that he lied when he stated this. Now, Stu Matthews, who was Officer Hankinson's defense attorney in the state trial, okay, declined to comment on Thursday, August 4th, saying he does not yet know whether he will represent the former officer in the federal case. An attorney for James did not immediately respond to a request for comment. It was not immediately clear whether Officer Goodlett and Sergeant Meany have attorneys, and they're going to need them. Now, Jim Pasco, Pasco, executive director of the National Fraternal Order of Police, said his organization is working to ensure that the defendants receive due process in the federal case, noted that Hankinson was acquitted in his state trial. Yeah, but the trial of Hankinson was dealing with wanton endangerment, and he was only charged with shooting into the neighbor's apartment. That's all he was charged with. He wasn't charged with anything dealing with the killing of Breonna Taylor. So nice try, Jim Pasco, executive director of the National Fraternal Order of Police. Nice try with that BS that you're trying to run. Okay, so read the rest of this here. They talk about the press conference. I watched the press conference. We shared it on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, that Breonna, attorney Benjamin Crump had that day after the announcement of the charges. At a news conference, Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mother, told reporters that while the Justice Department's action is satisfying, the circumstances of her daughter's death at the hands of the police remain painful. She said, "I waited 874 days for today. I've waited 874 days for today, and it's here now." Okay. Now you tell her that this indictment does not matter. We know an indictment is not a conviction. I mean, come on, get out of here with that nonsense. But you tell her, you go tell Breonna Taylor's mother, who's waited 874 days for these thugs to be indicted, that this doesn't matter. All right. So check out that article from the Washington Post. Now, the Department of Justice was created in 1870. The Department of Justice was created in 1870 during Reconstruction, largely to enforce the new rights of African Americans. So there's a good article from SmithsonianMag.com that deals with this. And then also there's information on the Department of Justice website. And I encourage everybody to go to justice.gov. And all the press releases and things like that dealing with the Department of Justice are at their website. Okay. But there's a, let's see, there's a piece here. We got right here. Okay. Justice.gov. When you go to about, there's an about section dealing with the Department of Justice. Let's look at this quickly. Then I want to look at this article here from SmithsonianMag.com. And we're going to squeeze in these other articles. I'm looking at I think I'm going to start doing a Wednesday show, also 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my social media platforms and Blog Talk Radio. We're on 9, 10 a.m. WFDF, Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. But there's so many topics I was doing radio 5-6 days a week, but they weren't paying me to do radio 5-6 days a week. So I'm cutting back to 1 day. I can do 2 days. We could do Sunday and Wednesday. I can't do 5-6 days a week. It's too much work, too much of a financial strain. But we can do a Wednesday show because we have new advertising rates as well. Email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And we have 3 new advertising rates, and you can advertise with the African History Network. And with our platinum package, we'll take out ads on our Facebook fan page and market to our 1 million Facebook followers to help promote your business or service. Okay, so email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So if we look at this information here from the Department of Justice, this is about DOJ. So just go to justice.gov, click on the About section. The mission of the Department of Justice is to uphold the rule of law, to keep our country safe, and to protect civil rights. If we go here to, okay, so the Office of the Attorney General was created by the Judiciary Act of 1789 as a one-person part-time position. The act specified that the Attorney General was to be learned in the law, with the duty to prosecute and conduct all suits in the Supreme Court in which the United States shall be concerned, and to give his advice and opinion upon questions of law when required by the President of the United States, or when requested by the heads of any of the departments touching any matters that may concern the department. So this is the Office of the Attorney General was created in 1789, but the Department of Justice wasn't created in 1870. It goes on to say, however, the workload quickly became too much for one person, necessitating the hiring of several assistants for the Attorney General. As the work steadily increased along with the size of the new nation, private attorneys were retained to work on cases. By 1870, after the end of the Civil War, April 9th, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrenders to Major General Gordon Grange, Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, April 9th, 1865. But for all practical purposes, the Civil War really comes to the end of August of 1866 when President Andrew Johnson declares it officially ends, okay, because terms of surrender had to be negotiated with the smaller Confederate armies, like General Joseph E. Johnston's army of Tennessee and Nathan Bedford Forrest, his army, things like this. So the army that General Robert E. Lee had of Virginia, that Confederate army was the largest Confederate army, but it was not the only Confederate army. So terms of surrender had to be negotiated with each one of those individual smaller Confederate armies. So it's going to be August of 1866 that the U.S. Civil War officially comes to an end. Now, a concerned Congress passed the act to establish the Department of Justice, creating an executive department of the government of the United States with the Attorney General at its head. So the first Attorney General under the Department of Justice was Amos T. Ackerman in 1880. Officially come into existence on July 1st, 1870. The Department of Justice was empowered to handle all criminal prosecutions and civil lawsuits in the United States in which the United States had an interest. All criminal prosecutions and civil suits in which the United States had an interest. To assist the Attorney General, the 1870 Act also created the Office of the Solicitor General, who represents the interests of the United States before the U.S. Supreme Court. The 1870 Act remains the foundation for the department's authority, but the structure of the Department of Justice has changed over the years, with the addition of the offices of Deputy Attorney General, Associate Attorney General, and the formation of various components, offices, boards, and divisions. From its beginning as a one-man, part-time position, the Department of Justice has evolved into the world's largest law office and the chief enforcer of federal laws. Okay, so you can read the rest of this information here. This is at justice.gov, which is the U.S. Department of Justice official website. It's in the About section, and it deals with the history of the Department of Justice coming into existence in 1870 during Reconstruction. Okay, now if we look at this article here, and we'll post this link here. Shonda Johnson Williams said, "Appreciate you." Thanks, Shonda. And also, if you want to support the African History Network, because all this don't happen through osmosis, if you want to support the African History Network, you can do so. $, the AHN show through Cash App, $, the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, pay the bills, etc., pay for all these services that I use. So when you tune in to the African History Network show, the show is on because somebody pays some bills. Okay, so we have the information right here on the homepage of our new website that I built and paid for, the African History Network show. $, and this is our official Cash App account, $, the AHN show. When you go to it, it says Michael, shows my picture there. I'm still trying to get these fake African History Network Cash App accounts shut down. I launched the investigation about 2.5 weeks ago with Cash App, and I'm going to follow up with them tomorrow because these people have been stealing money from us. So I'm trying to get them shut down. So we have the information right on the homepage of our new website, TheAHNShow.com. If you go to our old website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, it'll redirect you to the new website. The new website is much easier to use, it's user friendly, and it shows up very well on your smartphone and your tablets. Okay, now there's a good article from Smithsonian, and this is one of the, I don't have to pay a subscription to the Smithsonian Mag, but all these other sources, I got resources and news outlets I have to pay a subscription to. Like New York Times and Washington Post just paid New York Times today, as a matter of fact. Okay, created 150 years ago. The Justice Department's first mission was to protect Black rights. Okay, created 150 years ago. Okay, I think they're trying to get me to pay for something. It's like, y'all, it's like, hold on, man. It's like, oh my God, all the services I spend money with, I'm about to renew a subscription to, somehow my subscription with Britannica.com expired, and I use Britannica in my online classes. So I've got to renew the subscription to Britannica tomorrow. Somehow that expired. I don't know how that happened, but let's look at this article here. And this deals with some more of the history of the U.S. Department of Justice. This is from SmithsonianMag.com, which is the official website of the Smithsonian Institute. Created 150 years ago, the Justice Department's first mission was to protect Black rights, African American rights. Now, how many people knew this before you heard me talk about this? Okay, this is one of the reasons why this show matters. This is one of the reasons why understanding our history is so important. And this was during Reconstruction. Okay, in the wake of the Civil War, the government's new force sought to enshrine equality under the law. In the wake of the U.S. Civil War, 1861 to 1865, the government's new force sought to enshrine equality under the law. Now, this article is from July 1st, 2020. Okay. Now, this caricature here is the White League and the Ku Klux Klan. Okay. A cartoon by illustrator Thomas Nast. Thomas Nast shows a member of the White League, another domestic terrorist organization, the White League, and a member of the Ku Klux Klan joining hands over a terrorized black family, because the Klan wasn't the only one. You had the Knights of the White Camellia and the Red Shirts and the White League. We see the White League involved in the Clinton, Mississippi Massacre, 1875. Also, the Eufaula Massacre in Alabama, 1874. And if you take my online class that I normally teach on Sundays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, we deal with all this in that 10-week online course. We have that information. You can register for that at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Now, Amos T. Ackerman was an unlikely figure to head the newly formed Department of Justice. In 1870, the United States was still working to bind up the nation's wounds torn apart by the U.S. Civil War. During this period of Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, the federal government committed itself to guaranteeing full citizenship rights to all Americans, regardless of race. And during Reconstruction, African Americans were showing America to actually have a democracy, because you had a rewriting of state constitutions, like the Alabama State Constitution of 1867, which was one of the Reconstruction state constitutions. And is going to be in Alabama, they're going to create a public school system that allows all children to go to school for free, regardless of race or ethnicity. So, African Americans were saying that everybody should be able to go to school for free, regardless of race, including white children. If you look at this article here from the Zen Education Project, November 5th, 1867, Alabama State Constitution. So this is during Reconstruction, okay? November 5th, 1867, Alabama State Constitution. On November 5th, 1867, delegates in Montgomery, Alabama, which is the capital of Alabama, they gathered to draft a new state constitution as required by the Reconstruction Acts, Prior to the Reconstruction era, no Southern state, let's blow this up. Prior to the Reconstruction era, no Southern state had a state-financed public education system, even for white people. Okay, it's going to be African Americans during Reconstruction that advocate for this state-financed public education school system for everybody. African Americans were showing America how to have a democracy during Reconstruction. Alabama's new constitution established a centralized board of education, and mandated that schools receive 20% of state revenue. By 1871, nearly 55,000 African American and 87,000 white children were attending public schools. By 1871, nearly 55,000 African American and 87,000 white children were attending public schools. One of the delegates to the conviction was James Rapier, who promoted an alliance between freed people and poor whites, because a lot of white people were destitute after Reconstruction. Okay, and when you look at the Freedmen's Bureau, created in 1865, it was called the U.S. Bureau of Freedmen, Refugees, and Abandoned Lands. The U.S. Bureau of Freedmen, Refugees, and Abandoned Lands, because the Freedmen's Bureau wasn't just helping African Americans and former slaves. It was also helping poor, destitute white people as well. Now, the advances from the Constitution ended in Alabama and elsewhere with the brutal attacks on Reconstruction and the rewrite of the Alabama State Constitution in 1875. Okay, so check out this article here from the Zen Education Project. November 5th, 1867, Alabama State Constitution. All right. So this is during Reconstruction, which is an extremely important period of time in the history of this country, but it's a period of time that's taught very little in schools. If we look at this article here from Time Magazine, and this article because I pay the Time Magazine, a new report finds that 45 states are failing to teach students about the period that shaped race relations after the Civil War. All right. Now, this is an article from, we talked about this a number of times here on the show, and I use this article in my classes as well. This article came out January 12th, 2022, a year and 6 days after the January 6, 2021 insurrection that was reminiscent of the political violence that helped bring about an end to Reconstruction. In the aftermath of the insurrection a year ago, January 6, 2021, at the U.S. Capitol, many leading historians, as well as Michael Imhotep, drew parallels between the violence and that we saw January 6, 2021, incited by Benedict Donald, the traitor-in-chief, and the Reconstruction era, the period of political revolution directly following the American Civil War. Now, Eric Foner, who's one of the leading historians on the Reconstruction era, and he's a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian and author of the book Reconstruction, America's Unfinished Revolution, 1863-1877, he said in an interview with the New Yorker, published a week later, he said, quote, "The events we saw reminded me very much of the Reconstruction era and the overthrow of Reconstruction, which was accompanied or accomplished, I should say, by violent assaults on elected officials. Weren't those domestic terrorists yelling, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence? Weren't some of those domestic terrorists looking for Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and looking for other elected officials? What brought an end to Reconstruction, one of the things was violent assaults on elected officials. Now, scholars say studying the aftermath of the U.S. Civil War can help put in context many of the most seminal events in the U.S. in recent years, from the brutal murder of George Floyd by police in 2020 to the voter suppression laws enacted after African-American voters, along with Latinos and 49 million white people, played a big role in voted Joe Biden and Kamala Harris into office, but especially African-Americans. 16.9 million African-Americans voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But despite the timeliness of the era in today's climate, many students in American schools will not get a full education of Reconstruction until they get into college. But many of them are not going to go to college. So how do they learn about the Reconstruction era? This is a crucial period of history, okay? In social studies standards, for 45 out of 50 states and the District of Columbia, discussion of Reconstruction is partial or non-existent, according to historians who reviewed how the period is discussed in K through 12 social studies standards for public schools nationwide. Okay, in social studies standards for 45 out of 50 states and the District of Columbia, the discussion of the Reconstruction era is either partial or non-existent for K through 12 studies. And a report produced by the education nonprofit, the Zen Education Project, which is the entity that article dealing with the 1867 Alabama Reconstruction Constitution came from, that I just showed you. In a report produced by the Zen Education Project, the study's authors say they are concerned that American children will grow up to be uninformed about a critical period of history that helps explain why full racial equality remains unfulfilled today. So basically, they're going to grow up to be just as ignorant as their parents, because many of their parents don't know, and they're not teaching it to their children. This is why America must have a massive history lesson. especially if we think we're going to get reparations. If you're going to get any type of reparations, America must have a massive history lesson to understand how all this is connected and how we're still dealing with the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow segregation, redlining, housing discrimination, things like this, and how African Americans are still affected today. Okay, now let's go back to this piece here from. I want to go to this piece here from Smith. Go back to the article from the Smithsonian Institute, and we're going to get to some of these other stories very quickly here. So back to this article here from SmithsonianMag.com. Created 150 years ago, the Justice Department's first mission was to protect Black rights. And this is from July 1st, 2020. Now, at the forefront of that effort, Amos T. Ackerman, the first Attorney General under the Department of Justice, he was a former Democrat and enslaver from Georgia and a former officer in the Confederate Army. At the forefront of that effort was Amos T. Ackerman, a former Democrat and enslaver, slave owner from Georgia, and a former officer in the Confederate Army. Though the United States had an attorney general since the formation of the federal government in 1789, none had been empowered with the full force of a consolidated legal team quite like Amos T. Ackerman, and none had the monumental task of enforcing the 14th and 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution and new legislation delivering long overdue rights to 4 million formerly enslaved African American men and women. So this was the task of the Department of Justice. This department's work on behalf of the emancipated population was so central to its early mission that Amos T. Ackerman established the department's headquarters in the Freedmen's Savings Bank building. And the Freedmen's Bank created in 1865 also as an act of Congress during Reconstruction. Okay. In the immediate wake of the Civil War, Amos T. Ackerman, a New Hampshireite who had settled in Georgia in the 1840s, looked to the future, leaving the Democrats for the Republicans and prosecuting voter intimidation cases. You have voter intimidation cases today. He prosecuted voter intimidation cases as a U.S. district attorney in his adopted state of Georgia, reflecting on his decision to switch his allegiance to the party of Lincoln. Amos T. Ackerman said, quote, "Some of us who had adhered to the Confederacy felt it to be our duty when we were to participate in the politics of the Union to let the Confederate ideas rule us no longer. Some of us who had adhered to the Confederacy felt it to be our duty when we were to participate in the politics of the Union to let Confederate ideas rule us no longer. Regarding the subjugation of one race by the other as an appurtenance of slavery, we were content that it should go to the grave in which slavery had been buried. We were content that it should go to the grave in which slavery had been buried." Now, Amos T. Ackerman's work caught the attention of President Ulysses S. Grant, okay, who was a general in the Civil War, Union general in the Civil War, Ulysses S. Grant, who promoted the Georgian to Attorney General in June of 1870. On July 1st of 1870, the Department of Justice created to handle the onslaught of post-Civil War litigation became an official government department with Amos T. Ackerman at its helm. The focus of his 18-month tenure as the nation's top law enforcement official was the protection of African American voting rights from the systematic violence of the Ku Klux Klan. Amos T. Ackerman's Justice Department prosecuted and chased from southern states hundreds of Klan members. Now, we know that in October of 1871, because of the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, which is the third of the four enforcement acts during Reconstruction, we know that you're going to have President Ulysses S. Grant declare martial law in 9 counties in South Carolina, okay, to crack down on Klan activity. Okay, this takes place. This is because of the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, which gave is passed by Congress, and it gave the authority to the president to declare martial law when it came to elected officials being threatened and those carrying out their official duties, like poll workers and things like this. Okay. All right. So historian William McFeely, in his biography of Amos T. Ackerman, wrote, quote, "Perhaps no attorney general since his tenure has been more vigorous in the prosecution of cases designed to protect the lives and rights of Black Americans. Perhaps no attorney general since his tenure has been more vigorous in the prosecution of cases designed to protect the lives and rights of Black Americans." Okay, read the rest of this article here from SmithsonianMag.com. And this deals with the creation of the Department of Justice to enforce the rights of African Americans. Now, it goes on to say, indeed, white Democrats in South Carolina, the state that fired upon Fort Sumter to start the Civil War, which is April 12, 1861, would lead the post-war campaign to maintain their white supremacist empire. The Ku Klux Klan, founded in Pulaski, Tennessee on December 24, 1865, Christmas Eve, had entrenched itself in upcountry South Carolina counties by 1868. African Americans, newly emancipated, now comprised the majority of voters in the state of South Carolina. The majority of voters in South Carolina during Reconstruction were African Americans, and the majority of the state legislature in South Carolina was made up of African American men. Okay. African Americans, newly emancipated, now comprised the majority of the voters in the state of South Carolina, and most voted Republican, the party led by President Ulysses S. Grant, that was safeguarding their lives and rights. So it goes on to say, in reaction, now this deals with the Colfax, this lithograph here, this caricature is dealing with the Colfax Massacre of 1873. Okay, so check this out also. This is from Harper's Weekly, May 10th, 1873. Now, in reaction to the racial violence, the U.S. Congress passed what's known as the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, which President Ulysses S. Grant signed into law on April 20th, 1871, providing Amos T. Ackerman, the Attorney General, unprecedented tools to subdue the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan Act authorized the President of the United States to submit the writ of habeas corpus, that means going to court, having your day in court to defend yourself, which allowed the Justice Department to detain suspected Klan members, keep them in custody, and not immediately bring them to trial. Okay, this allowed the Department of Justice to detain suspected Klan members, keep them in custody, and not immediately bring them to trial. The Department of Justice could also withhold disclosure of the identities of suspects and the evidence against them, which allowed Attorney General Amos T. Ackerman to make mass arrests and gather evidence without the parties conspiring with each other. Using these tools, Attorney General Ackerman obtained hundreds of convictions in South Carolina and throughout the South against these Klans members. Now, author Ron Chernow, in his own Ulysses S. Grant, reports that on one day in November 1871, 250 people in one South Carolina county confessed their affiliation with the Ku Klux Klan. One would think that Attorney General Amos T. Ackerman's record of success would have pleased President Ulysses S. Grant, but the president relieved Ackerman of his duties in December of 1871. The common explanation for the dismissal is that Ackerman, who author Chernow describes as honest and incorruptible, scrutinized the land deals struck between railroad barons and the U.S. government. Okay, now McFeely put the blame on the nation's attachment to white supremacy. Quote, men from the North as well as the South came to recognize uneasily that if he was not halted, Amos T. Ackerman, if he was not halted, his concept of equality before the law was likely to lead to total equality. So according to author McFeely, Amos T. Ackerman was doing his job too well of prosecuting Klans members and domestic terrorists. Okay, read the rest of this article here. Fascinating piece from the SmithsonianMag.com, official website of the Smithsonian Institute, in their magazine, official magazine of the Smithsonian Institute. Created 150 years ago, the Department of Justice, created 150 years ago, the Justice Department's first mission was to protect Black rights. The Department of Justice's first mission was to protect Black rights. So the work that Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark is doing, Assistant Attorney General of the Civil Rights Department, and the press conference that she and Attorney General Merrick Garland had August 4th, 2022, announcing charges against 4 officers in the killing of Breonna Taylor, they are operating in that tradition of why the Department of Justice was created in 1870 through an act of Congress during Reconstruction. All right, we're going to take a break here. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. You're not going to get this type of information from many other places. You can support the African History Network. If you like this type of information we share with you, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. Also register for the online history classes I teach normally on Saturdays and Sundays, but we have a class coming up on Tuesday, August 9th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to do a session of ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, because I couldn't do it this past weekend because I was at the Obama Weekend Festival at Barack Obama Leadership Academy here in Detroit that James Ford organized. Okay, so we had him on the show last Sunday to talk about it. But you can go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the class. This time we're going to do 13 sessions instead of 10. As soon as you register, you can watch the previous classes. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. And then also we have on Sundays, normally I teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. These classes are on sale $60, regularly $130. Okay. And when we also have a bundle pack, so you can register for both classes for $100. That's over a $300 value that you get for $100. So we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire class. Okay. All right. So we'll take a quick break, and you're watching the African History Network show here on our social media platforms. We're also broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio, our Blog Talk Radio channel today, which is the African History Network show on at blogtalkradio.com. And you can give us a call, 914-338-1375. Let me post the call-in number here. This is the call-in number for tonight's show only, because this is our Blog Talk Radio call-in number. 914-338-1375. Press the number 1 key to put you in queue, so we could bring you on the air, or you can call that number and just listen to the show as well. Normally we're on 9-10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF, but they had a scheduling conflict, so they're not broadcasting live tonight. So I found that out when I called into the station to do my show. They sent out an email early in the week, but I was so busy I missed the email. I talked to Jalen, my board operator, tonight. He said, hey, they sent an email early in the week. I'm like, man, this week was a blur. Okay, I did Roland Martin's show on Tuesday for 2 hours. I did Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show, Keeping It Real, for 2 hours on Wednesday. I did Roland's show again on Friday. I had projects I was working on this week, and I had to get ready to be at the Obama Weekend Festival as well at Barack Obama Academy on Saturday. So this week was a blur. All right. We'll be back in a few minutes. You're watching the African History Network show. And email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network.
STEM Forward, helping our community find their place in the emerging fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Join us for our monthly live stream on our website, stemforwardedu.org. Watch, subscribe, share. Also join our mailing list to stay up to date with STEM resources and opportunities. STEM Forward, the future is now. Watch, subscribe, share.
Imhotep, everybody. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. And I want to give a special shout out to everybody who has attended the 11th annual Liberated Minds Black Homeschool and Education Expo. I just want to take a few minutes, and we had a great presentation that I did on Saturday. So I teach 2 online history classes. One on Saturday and one on Sunday. On Saturday, the class that I teach, normally 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And this is normally a 10-week online class. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We can't start studying our history in slavery. Even when we study the transatlantic slave trade, which is important to study, we can't start in 1619 or in the 1440s with the Portuguese, when the Portuguese get involved in the transatlantic slave trade. We have to understand the history chronologically and deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who entered into the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, from North Africa in 711 AD. When we discuss the transatlantic slave trade, we have to first understand that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America, and have been in the land we call the United States at least 51,700 years. Now, the second class I teach is on Sundays, normally 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Now, these classes are normally $130. They're on sale right now, $60. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch it anytime. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire class. With both of these classes, I would say the content is PG-13, so you can use this with your children as well if you want to. Also, you can advertise with the African History Network. We have 3 new advertising packages. Our current promotion is buy 1 month to get 1 month free. We have 1 million followers at our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. And with our platinum package, we'll take out ads on our Facebook fan page for you as well to help maximize your advertising campaign. And we take your 30-second to 60-second commercial, we put into the rebroadcast of our shows. and also into the audio podcast of our shows as well. We only have 20 advertising slots because we have a finite amount of advertising space. Email us at AHNshow@TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNshow@TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, or call us 313-462-0003. All right now it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace. All right. Welcome back to the African History Network show, an African American business owners post and name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. You should be able to hear me. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. You can hear me. African American business owners post and name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. And we'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network, and email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So you can advertise with us. And we still have the old email address, AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I'm having some problems with the new email address through our new website, TheAFricanHistoryNetwork.com. So just email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, because it works and I just paid the bill. So I'm still going to use that. That email address works better. Okay, let's go to this next story here. And this deals with an update dealing with the Tulsa Race Massacre. Okay. We got the news this past week, and I think it was Thursday. We got the news. A Tulsa judge allows 1921 race massacre lawsuit to move forward. And this was good news, but so this is for the 3 survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Okay. This is for the 3 survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Now, there was also another lawsuit on behalf of descendants of the Tulsa Race Massacre, because they were suing for reparations. That lawsuit was denied, but the one for the 3 survivors, okay, was allowed to continue. And we talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. So I'm going to share a couple clips with you dealing with that here in just a minute. A Tulsa judge is allowing a lawsuit brought by plaintiffs, including 3 survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, to move forward. The written order filed on Wednesday. Yeah, it was actually Wednesday. We got the news Wednesday, August 3rd. Okay. The written order filed on Wednesday provides the reasoning behind a May 2022 decision by Tulsa County District Judge Caroline Wall that denied in part and granted in part a motion to dismiss the case brought forward by the defendants, including the city of Tulsa and Tulsa County. No further details were offered at the time. Now, there was an article from that I saw from Essence Magazine, and their article said that the descendants were denied their lawsuit to sue for reparations, but it did. So that was the headline, but it then went on to say that the 3 survivors, their lawsuit moves forward. Okay. And we know the 3 survivors are Viola Fletcher, Mother Fletcher, Leslie Benningfield, Randall, and Hughes Van Ellis Sr., who is Mother Fletcher's younger brother. Okay. And she's Viola Fletcher's 108, Leslie Benningfield is 107, Hughes Van Ellis is 101 years old. So we talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and we actually spoke with attorney Demario Solomon Simmons, who I was co-panelist with him on Tuesday's show, but he's a frequent panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered. He's one of the attorneys for the 3 survivors. So let's go to this clip here from Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Repair for the city of The descendants of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, they have been fighting all of these years, 101 years, for repair for the city of Tulsa and state of Oklahoma to repay those individuals who were impacted by the devastation caused by that massacre. Well, now, finally, they get to move forward. On Tuesday, a judge signed the order. Tulsa County District Judge Caroline Walls signed the order saying that 6 descendants of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre can sue for reparations. In May, Wall allowed the case to go forward while partially granting a motion to dismiss it without saying at the time what was being dismissed. Now, in addition to the 6 descendants, Wall dismissed as plaintiffs the historic Vernon AME Church, which did not exist in 1921, as well as the Tulsa African Ancestral Society, which represents other descendants. Folks, can Mario now hear me? Okay, all right, y'all gotta let me know what's happening there. Let me introduce our panel. Kelly Bethea, communications strategist. Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network show. Matt Manning, he is a civil rights attorney. Glad to have all 3 of you here. Folks, once we get DeMario's audio straight, I'll be able to talk to him about this. As I said, folks, we were in Tulsa last year, and this is not being new. You might remember Johnny Cochran and others. Other attorneys, Charles Ogletree, they were very much working on this. DeMario representing these descendants now. So DeMario, tell us exactly what the judge is allowing to move forward in this case.
Good evening, Roland. Good to see you. Hey, I'm not there with you in Las Vegas. Listen, the judge gave us a historic opportunity to be able to move forward with our 3 living survivors to go into the discovery phase of this particular case. It is something that's never happened before in the history of this country, where you had a incident, terrorism that happened 100 years ago that we're going to be able to litigate today. These particular 3 heroes, 108-year-old Viola Fletcher, you see her there with 101-year-old brother, Uncle Red. Hughes Ellis is 101, and then we have 107-year-old Leslie Benefield Randall. So she narrowed our case some. We were not happy about that. But the fact of the matter is, Roland, we're still in the game. We still have an opportunity to show that the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre was a public nuisance that continues to impact our community today, the community of Tulsa, the community of Oklahoma, and all Black people all throughout this country.
For folks who don't know the history, people don't realize that Greenwood was actually rebuilt. But the fact of the matter is, this was a significant amount of Black wealth that was wiped out. And so Black people could have built on top of that as opposed to having to replace it. And so what is it that you and the descendants, what are you looking to get from the city and the state?
Yeah, and I want to just say, when people say Greenwood rebuilt, some people in Greenwood rebuilt, but people like A.J. Smitherman, who owned the only African-American newspaper, the first African-American newspaper to have a national circulation, since we're talking about NABJ, it did not rebuild. He was ran out of town. So, a lot of people, a lot of our leaders were killed, they were exiled, and they did not get a chance to rebuild. And those are some of the things that we want from the city and the county and the state. We want this nuisance to be what's called abated, for it be restoration and rebuilding of a community that was 40 square blocks, 40 blocks, 4.5 square miles, over 12,000 residents, over 1,500 homes that were burnt or destroyed. It was not just the Black Wall Street section, the business section, but the entire Greenwood community that was burnt down. So we want restoration. We want land to be returned. Just how we saw out in Manhattan Beach with Bruce's Beach out in Los Angeles, California a couple weeks ago. We want land that was taken during the massacre. We want it to be returned, or you pay the fair market value. We want businesses that were destroyed during the massacre to be rebuilt. We want everything that prevented us from being the Black Wall Street of America that we were. We want that to be restored, because it would impact descendants, our survivors, and our entire Black community.
Do you want to rebuild your gums and teeth while getting rid of tooth decay in just 10 seconds per day? If your gums...
Stand by just a second. We got to get past this ad. All right, let's skip this ad here.
Mosley make amends. It has been hit and miss. You've had what I say has been you've had what I call performative politics, if you will, where folks want to say the right thing. Y'all have been saying no, do the right thing. You've had the city build this museum where they want black folks and others to come visit from a tourism perspective, but they raised what, $30 million for that when they could have given that $30 million to the descendants.
That's right, Roland. And they haven't done any amends for the massacre. They haven't paid 1 penny in reparations. They haven't rebuilt 1 business that was destroyed. They haven't any of the land that was taken. They haven't provided any of the scholarships that they were supposed to do. They've done nothing but enrich themselves off the exploits, off the blood and the terrorism that they themselves inflicted upon our community. Roland, you're right. Raised over $30 million for a museum for what they call heritage tourism, but they did not give 1 penny of that money to the survivors, to the descendants, and we've called for that, as you know. We also call for them to the ongoing money that they're generating as they have gentrified Greenwood, and they're making money, millions of dollars now a year, based upon the Greenwood story. None of that money is coming back to the descendants. We think that's wrong. That is why we also have an unjust enrichment claim in our particular lawsuit, that we will have an opportunity. The judge said we can replead that. I don't want to get too technical, but we will also be putting that forward in this particular case. So those who want to stand with us, those who want to see justice, go to justiceforgreenwood.org. That is justiceforgreenwood.org. Make a donation, sign up for our newsletter, connect with us so we continue to get this, so we can get these victories. This is just the first step in a long journey. We have a long way to go. But with community people and people like you, Roland, we can get justice. And if we can win in Tulsa, we can win anywhere. But if we cannot win in Tulsa, when we have living survivors, we have video, we have pictures, we have records. If we cannot win here, then we cannot win anywhere. But together, we can get justice for Greenwood.
All right, let me pause it right there. Okay, so so justiceforgreenwood.org. You can go there, get more information. You can support them financially, justiceforgreenwood.org. Okay, now I want to go to this next clip here. And Roland goes to his panel, and I'm on the panel. Let's go to clip 2 here.
I mean, there's so many people. You had the legal dream team with Johnny Cochran. You had Willie Gary. You had Charles Ogletree. I remember them bringing the survivors, many of them who now become ancestors, to Congressional Black Caucus, ALC, bringing them to Congress as well. I mean, they have been fighting this good fight for a very, very, very long time.
Yes, they have. And I remember the documentary, Before They Die. They came out, I think, in the 1990s sometime. I remember the fight of Charles Ogletree and others. I've studied the history extensively of the origins of Tulsa, which was founded by Creek Indians around 1834. And when they go into Oklahoma, they take their African slaves with them. And a lot of the early African-American landowners in what became the Greenwood District, North Tulsa, a lot of them got land because of those Black Freedmen Indian treaties of 1866. And last year, Roland, when you were in Tulsa for the 100th commemoration, you actually interviewed a sister who was a descendant of some of those Black Indians, former slaves, who got land from those treaties, and their land was taken away. So this has been a fight on multiple levels. I've been following this strategy with the public nuisance. One of the things that I want to find out is what exactly do they have to prove? What's the burden of proof that they have to prove to actually win their case? And the other thing is, I know that in 2021, Representative Hank Johnson of Georgia, House Representatives, Congressional Black Caucus, introduced a bill to try to get reparations for the 3 survivors as well of the Tulsa Race Massacre. So I'm trying to find out where that bill is as well in the House of Representatives. But this is huge for this to be able to advance like this after 101 years. Yep. All right. So we're going to pause it right there.
Indeed. Kelly.
Okay. So we're going to pause it right there. Okay. Now, you can that was from the Friday, August 5th edition of Roland Martin Unfiltered. You can watch it in its entirety. Also, they have that segment on Roland Martin's YouTube channel, Roland S. Martin on YouTube. They have just that segment as well that you can watch also. Okay. If we look here at this article from Essence.com, this is an article that I mentioned. And at the beginning of that segment, Roland got the ruling mixed up a little bit. The 6 descendants are not allowed to proceed with their lawsuit, but the 3 survivors are. Okay. Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons cleared that up. If we look at this article from Essence.com, Tulsa Race Massacre descendants can't sue for reparations, judge says. Cannot sue for reparations, judge says. Judge Caroline Wall dismissed 6 descendants and multiple organizations from a lawsuit, while the 3 last known survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre can continue seeking reparations. So 6 descendants of victims of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre cannot sue for reparations, an Oklahoma judge said, while 3 known survivors of the attack can move forward with the lawsuit. The 3 survivors can move forward with the lawsuit. Tulsa County District Judge Caroline Wall signed the order on Tuesday. That was Tuesday, August 2nd, allowing Leslie Benningfield, Mother Randall, Leslie Benningfield, Mother Randall, Viola Fletcher, who's Viola Fletcher is now 108, Mother Fletcher, and Hughes Van Ellis, who's 101 years old, to continue seeking reparations under the state of Oklahoma nuisance law, public nuisance law, according to the Associated Press. In addition to the 6 descendants, Judge Caroline Wall dismissed the historic Vernon AME Church Inc. and the Tulsa African Ancestral Society as plaintiffs in the case, as well as the Tulsa Development Authority and the Tulsa Metropolitan Area Planning Commission as defendants because they did not exist in 1921. Now, as Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons explained in that interview, when you watch the full interview, the church existed, the Vernon AME Church existed in 1921, but they became incorporated after 1921. So the church was standing in 1921, but because they were not incorporated, the judge is saying that they can't proceed with their lawsuit. Okay. It's really an underhanded way to block them out, to lock them out. Now, the city of Tulsa County Commissioners, Tulsa Regional Chamber, the Tulsa County Sheriff, and the Oklahoma Military Department will remain as defendants in the lawsuit. Demario Solomon Simmons, who we just saw in the interview with Roland Martin, who's an attorney for the survivors, told the Associated Press, quote, "Bottom line is that survivors are in. We have the opportunity to prove the massacre itself constitutes a nuisance. We look forward to proving our case around the massacre's ongoing catastrophic effects and demonstrating the actions that defendants must take to repair and rebuild the Greenfield community during our clients' lifetimes. Okay. So he went on to say during a news conference that he had spoken with the individuals who were dismissed from the case, adding that they were saddened by the dismissal, but still very excited that the three survivors, are moving forward with the lawsuit and can represent the entire community of Greenwood. Read the rest of this article from Essence.com, Essence Magazine. Tulsa Race Massacre descendants can't sue for reparations, judge says. Okay, so read the rest of that article. All right, now, I want to move quickly to this other story and some of this other stuff we're going to get to on our Wednesday broadcast. How's everybody doing? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. Okay. And I'm going to post a link here to that full segment from Roland Martin Unfiltered also. Okay, we'll post this right here. Okay, we'll post this link here. Okay, very quickly, let's go to the Brittney Griner story. The outcome was predictable with Brittney Griner. We all knew that she was going to be, if you understand Russia and their injustice system in Russia, we know that the Russian prosecutors have a 99% conviction rate. It's not because they're good prosecutors, it's because they're crooked as hell. So we all knew that she was going to be convicted. Oh, also, before we go to that story here, I wanted to squeeze in this article here. Let's go back to the Tulsa Race Massacre, the lawsuit. This article from history.com, official website of the History Channel. We talked about this article before. I deal with this in my online history classes as well. 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Tulsa's Black Wall Street. 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Tulsa's Black Wall Street. This article is from May 14th, 2021. Okay. Before the Tulsa Race Massacre, the city's African-American district thrived as a community of business leaders and visionaries. This gets to what I was talking about dealing with the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866. And they quote Hannibal B. Johnson, who's one of the top authorities and historians on Tulsa and Black Wall Street. And I read his book, actually, this book right here. Where is his book? Where's Hannibal's book? Right here. I read his first book on the Tulsa Race Massacre, Black Wall Street, From Riot to Renaissance in Tulsa's Historic Greenwood District. When I was doing my research, I'm in a documentary dealing with Black Wall Street from a few years ago, and I have a 2.5-hour lecture available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, dealing with the Tulsa Race Massacre, dealing with Black Wall Street and the origins of Tulsa, things like this. But one of my sources in preparation for to do the research was this book right here by Hannibal B. Johnson. Okay, so if we look at this article, he's quoted in this article. Before the Greenwood District was established, African Americans came to Oklahoma in the mid-19th century, the mid-1800s, as slaves of the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans. The term used for the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole Native American tribes who were forced from their lands in the southeast part of the United States, resettling in Oklahoma, then known as Indian Territory. After the U.S. Civil War, under the terms of the treaties of 1866, these African Americans were emancipated, with some integrating into these Native American tribes, a relationship that would later provide freedmen with their own land, a relationship that would later provide freedmen, the Black freedmen, with their own land from those 1866 Indian treaties and the 1887 Dawes Allotment Act. Hannibal B. Johnson, historian Hannibal B. Johnson says, quote, the relative wealth of some Black folks in Oklahoma comes in part through their connection to the tribes and their land ownership. Through the tribes, connection to the tribes and their land ownership, says Hannibal B. Johnson, historian and author of Black Wall Street 100, and American City grapples with this historical racial trauma. So that was his second book on Black Wall Street, which came out in 2021 around the time of the 100th commemoration of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Now, the Dawes Allotment Act, or the Dawes Act for short, of 1887 authorized the U.S. government to divide tribal territories into allotments for individual Native Americans, which included Black members, African-American members, okay, of those Native American nations. As word spread that Indian Territory was a safe place for African-Americans to settle, between 1865 and 1920, more than 50 Black townships were founded in Oklahoma. More than 50 Black townships were founded in Oklahoma. And it's going to be those, many of those African-American townships that are going to help the African-Americans in Tulsa, Oklahoma, rebuild after the Tulsa Race Massacre. We got help from surrounding Black townships to rebuild. Okay, so check out that article from history.com, official website of the History Channel. 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Tulsa's Black Wall Street. Okay, all right, now let's go quickly here to the news dealing with Brittney Griner, and this deals with the her being found guilty. We knew this was going to happen in a Russian court. There's an article from NBC News dealing with this. And let me pull this up here from NBC News. Brittney Griner found guilty in Russian drug trial, sentenced to 9 years in prison. And let's see, do we have this here? Let's pull this up. Just a second here. I'm operating everything tonight by myself because we're not on 9:10 a.m. I don't have my board operator. Okay, this is right here from dealing with Brittney Griner. All right, let's go to this article. So she was detained on drug charges February 17th. She's been detained in Russia since February 17th. If we look at this article here briefly from NBC News, prosecutors had asked for a 9.5-year sentence for the WNBA star after Thursday's verdict. Attention will turn to the potential for a prisoner swap between the United States and Russia. A prisoner swap between the United States and Russia. So the U.S. Secretary Blinken announced about 2 weeks ago that a deal has been on the table for weeks. They put a deal on the table weeks ago. The ball, basically, Moscow holds all the cards. Okay, this moves at the pace of Moscow. Okay, not the U.S. WNBA star Brittney Griner was sentenced to 9 years in a Russian prison after being convicted on drug charges by a Moscow court Thursday. Brittney Griner pleaded guilty last month in a lengthy trial that has underscored the frayed relationships between the United States and Russia since the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine. Okay, it's the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine. Now, prosecutors asked for a sentence of 9.5 years after closing arguments on Thursday, and that was Thursday, August 4th. In a final plea for leniency, an emotional Brittney Griner apologized and repeated that she never intended to break any Russian laws, but that she had made an honest mistake. She said she was in a rush packing, and she put the cartridges that had the cannabis residue in her bag. She has a prescription. She has a prescription for the cannabis because she's dealing with chronic pain from an injury. All right. We know that she's been playing for a Russian team, basketball for a Russian team for about 7 years in the off season. She has to play in the off season to earn extra money because in the WNBA, they don't make anything comparable to what NBA players make. And that is very hard on the body and doesn't allow your body to rest and recover during the off season, which makes you more prone and vulnerable to injuries during the actual regular season of the WNBA. Okay, so it causes your body to break down sooner and at a younger age, and it doesn't allow you to recover during the off season like you should, which makes you more prone to injuries during the regular season. I want to go to this clip here from NBC News. Brittney Griner sentenced to 9 years in prison, in Russian prison on drug charges. Let's go to this clip. Okay, check out that clip from NBCnews.com. Okay, and yes, she's being used as. Let me close this out. Hold on. Yes, she's being used as a political pawn also. Okay, check out that article from NBCnews.com. That article once again is Brittney Griner sentenced to years. Brittney Griner found guilty in Russian drug trial, sentenced to 9 years in prison. Okay, check that out from NBCnews.com. Okay, so we'll keep you up to date on what's going on with that. All right, now, let's see here. A lot of this other stuff we're going to get to on Wednesday show. Okay, so we'll do a special show Wednesday, 9 p.m. Roger E. Mosley, actor known from Magnum P.I, TC on Magnum P.I. He passed away at age 83. We got the news today. He passed away age 83. I used to watch Magnum P.I. I remember my dad watched that show as well. Tom Selleck, Magnum P.I. He had that really hot red car. And here's a picture of Roger E. Mosley. He's the only African American on the show. He also starred as blues folk legend Leadbelly, and was a regular in blaxploitation films like The Mac, okay, with Max Julian, The Mac. Roger E. Mosley, who portrayed Theodore Calvin, better known as TC, who was the helicopter pilot and buddy of Tom Selleck's character, Magnum, on all 8 seasons of the original Magnum P.I. series. He passed away Sunday, August 7th, 2022. He was 83 years old. Now, Roger Mosley died at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles of injuries incurred in a car accident in nearby Linwood 3 days earlier. His daughter, Cha told the Hollywood Reporter. On the big screen, Roger Mosley was at his most memorable as blues and folk singer Huddie Ledbetter in the movie The Midnight Special, in the period piece Leadbelly from 1976. It was directed by Gordon Parks, the famed photographer Gordon Parks. Now, in his review of the movie, Roger Ebert, one half of the Siskel and Ebert movie critics duo, in his review, Roger Ebert wrote that Roger Mosley played the part with great strength and called the film one of the best biographies of a musician I've ever seen. One of the best biographies of a musician I've ever seen. Now, Roger Mosley also was a standout in blaxploitation films, playing the angry brother of the fresh out of prison Goldie, Max Julian, in the classic 1973 movie The Mac, and starring in the movie Hitman in 1972, Sweet Jesus Preacher Man 1973, never heard of that movie, and Darktown Strutters 1975, never heard of that either. Hitman, I remember from 1972. Also, I saw Hitman, I saw The Mac. I remember him as Sonny Liston in Muhammad Ali's movie about himself, The Greatest, from 1977. Muhammad Ali played himself. Roger Mosley portrayed Sonny Liston in that movie. I remember that, okay? He was in The Greatest, 1977. Roger Mosley, a sturdy 6'2" and 215 pounds in his prime, portrayed Sonny Liston and got whooped by Muhammad Ali. Now, the likable character of TC appeared in 158 of the 162 episodes of the CBS TV show Magnum P.I, created by Donald Belisario and Glenn A. Larson. TC was a buddy of Tom Selleck's Thomas Magnum character from their days in Vietnam. His character owned a helicopter. Charter company in Oahu called Island Hoppers in Hawaii, which came in handy on the series that aired from December 1980 through May of 1988. According to Roger Mosley, Gerald McRaney was all set to play the character of TC before the producers realized they needed a person of color in the main cast. How long did it take them to realize that the cast was all white? They needed a person of color. Now, Tom Selleck thought of Roger Mosley from a prison film they had done together in 1973's Terminal Island and suggested Roger Mosley for the part. So this is how Roger Mosley gets the part of TC. Okay. Now, the Los Angeles native was busy making movies at the time and did not want a job on a television show, but his agent talked him into at least doing the Magnum pilot. It's nothing like a steady paycheck. Okay. It's not like a steady paycheck. And this ended up being an 8-year gig for him. Okay. A steady paycheck for 8 years. Okay. It's nothing like a steady paycheck. Now, as Roger Mosley remembered it, his agent told him it's starring this guy, Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck has made about 5 pilot shows and none of them has sold. So here's what you do, Roger, sign up for the show, go to Hawaii. They'll treat you good for the 20 days it will take to shoot the pilot. You'll get a lot of money and then come home. You'll get a lot of money, then come home. A show with Tom Selleck always fails and you'll be fine. Okay. Well, 8.5 years later, the show lasted for 8 years. Now, Roger Mosley in real life was a licensed private helicopter pilot, something the producers discovered after he was hired, he said, but not allowed to fly on the series. Now, at the start of the series, the writers had TC as the owner of a struggling helicopter business, but Roger Mosley refused to, quote, be the only black person in Hawaii and be broke. Roger Mosley refused to be the only black person in Hawaii and be broke. So he said, quote, and they reversed. They decided Tom Selleck would be broke and I would be financially well off, except I was always bailing him out. Now, Roger Mosley also made his character a graduate of Grambling State University and HBCU, a lover of books and poetry, and a guy who did not party. Okay. He wanted his character to be non-stereotypical. He said the Magnum writers, kept writing for me to smoke and drink, but I would not do it. He said in a 1982 interview in Ebony magazine. He said, I never get high, smoke, or drink on the show or in real life. That's not what I want black kids to see. Okay, so here we have, once again, these white writers writing stereotypical roles for African Americans to reinforce these negative stereotypes. They wanted TC's character to be broke. They wanted him to be drinking. They wanted him to get high. To reinforce these negative stereotypes, Roger E. Mosley was strong enough, not just physically, but mentally, as well as had the integrity to put his foot down and say, I'm not going to project these negative stereotypical images that you want me to do. He had the integrity to stand up and say, I don't want these negative images that these white writers want to project to African-American children and project of African Americans. I don't want to participate in that. Okay. He said, I never get high, smoke, or drink on the show or in real life. That's not what I want black kids to see. Now, Roger Earl Mosley, was born December 18th, 1938. He was raised by his mother, Eloise, in the Imperial Quartz Project in Watts. He was a wrestler in high school and a swimming coach in the neighborhood. Okay. He was also on the TV show Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Okay. Also with Mark Curry. You remember him? He was in the first season of Hanging with Mr. Cooper as well. He was a coach on there, basketball coach, and I think he taught wrestling as well. Now, as recounted in a 1976 story for People magazine, Roger Mosley was studying acting under Raymond St. Jacques at the Mafundi Institute, a community art school in Watts, when a director from Universal Studios, came to lecture the students on self-sacrifice and said, I know actors who had to eat ketchup sandwiches. I know actors who had to eat ketchup sandwiches. Now, Roger E. Mosley got up and shouted, you have the audacity to tell us to eat ketchup sandwiches for our art. I know people who are eating ketchup sandwiches to survive. We need somebody to give us a break. We need somebody to give us a break. The director invited Roger Mosley to visit the studio the next week. Now, Roger Mosley made one of his first on-screen appearances in 1971 on an episode of the CBS TV show Cannon, then had small roles in the New Centurions, 1972, and Hickey and Boggs, 1972 as well. He later worked with John Wayne in McQ in 1974, and with James Earl Jones and Cicely Tyson and Lou Gossett Jr. in the 1976 movie Niger, The River Niger, 1976, and as a football player, Pudden Patterson Sr. in the 1977 Semi-Tough movie starring Burt Reynolds. Now, after Magnum P.I., he starred opposite Nell Carter. Remember Nell Carter from Give Me a Break. And she was also on the TV show Hanging with Mr. Cooper. She was the principal on Hanging with Mr. Cooper for a couple of seasons, 2 or 3 seasons. Post Magnum P.I., he starred opposite Nell Carter on the CBS sitcom You Take the Kids, and also as Coach Ricketts on ABC's Hanging with Mr. Cooper with Mark Curry. And also remember the guy who played Julian on A Different World, Dominique Hoffman, I think is his name. He also played the assistant principal on about one season of Hanging with Mr. Cooper as well. And Roger Mosley also played as Milt Johnson on Showtime's Rude Awakening. He also appeared in the movies Heart Condition in 1990, Unlawful Entry in 1992, Penthalon 1994, and The Thin Line Between Love and Hate 1996. Remember with Martin Lawrence and Lynn Whitfield. Martin Lawrence and Lynn Whitfield, I think it is. A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. Now, survivors also include his wife, Antoinette Toney. They were together for nearly 60 years. Son Brandon, grandson Austin, and Rashawn among his many nieces and nephews. His daughter Cha wrote on Facebook, "We could never mourn such an amazing man. He would hate any crime done in his name. It is time to celebrate the legacy he left for us all. I love you, Daddy. You love me too. My heart is heavy, but I am strong. I would care for Mommy, your love of almost 60 years. You raised me well, and she is in good hands. Rest easy." Okay, so check out this piece here from The Hollywood Reporter. BlackAmericaWeb.com also has an article that came out later today on the death of Roger E. Mosley, actor on Magnum P.I., passed away at age 83. Passed away at age 83. So he'll definitely be missed. And let me see something here. And that was, Lynn Whitfield, Thin Line Between Love and Hate. All right. So these other stories here, Tyler Perry, Cicely Tyson, and also the bill that came out, Carolyn Bryant Donham we'll get to on Wednesday. Very quickly here, this massive bill passed the U.S. Senate today. I knew it was going to pass. We know that there were private negotiations going on between Senator Mitch McConnell and Senator Senator from West Virginia, Senator Joe Manchin. Okay. And you do those negotiations in private, not in the media. So I had been reading that Manchin was wanted to do a deal and take elements of Build Back Better and make that a bill. So I knew this was coming. Senate approves Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, clenching long delayed health and climate bill. This is huge. This is a huge bill that passed. The vote was 50-50 in the Senate. Vice President Kamala Harris had the tie-breaking vote. There's a good article from NBCnews.com also that deals with this as well. This is the article here from the Washington Post. I want to look at the article here quickly. From NBC News because they give a breakdown of what's actually in the bill and the dollar allocation of what's actually in the bill. So if we look at this here, Senate passes sweeping climate, health, and tax package. Senate passes sweeping climate, health, and tax package, putting Democrats on cusp of historic win. So it now goes to the House of Representatives. It's expected to pass in the House with no problem. It's expected that the House will vote on it on Friday, and then it goes to President Joe Biden's desk to be signed into law. The Inflation Reduction Act now heads to the House, which is expected to pass it later this week and send it to President Joe Biden's desk for signature. Now, it's important to note, no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for this bill. No Republicans in the Senate voted for this bill. It's not expected that any Republicans in the House of Representatives will vote for this bill either. So you have all these Republicans running around talking about inflation and we need to do something about inflation, all this stuff. Okay, they're all talking, no action. When it came time to actually vote on a bill to do something about inflation, all 50 Republicans in the Senate voted against the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Senate Democrats narrowly passed a sweeping climate and economic package on Sunday, putting President Joe Biden and his party on the cusp of a big legislative victory just 3 months before the crucial November midterm elections. After a marathon overnight session, they went for about 20 hours. It started on Saturday, continued into Sunday. It went into Sunday afternoon to about 3-4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, something like that. They went for about 20 hours. After a marathon overnight Senate session, the 51-50 vote was strictly along party lines, with all Republicans voting no. With all Republicans voting no, and all the Democrats voting yes, including Senator Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Now, Sinema wanted, she got an adjustment to the carried interest. I think it was the carried interest. The carried interest law that they were adjusting. She got an adjustment to that. Okay, but so what? They still got the rest of the bill passed. And that's the most important thing. You can come back and you can deal with carried interest in 2023 after you maintain control of the Senate, okay? And you increase your lead in the Senate. You can come back and deal with the rest of that. But get this bill passed now. Get this bill passed now, okay? And we're this article right here. All right. This is the article here dealing with the Senate passing this bill. Senate approves Inflation Reduction Act, clinching long-delayed health and climate bill. Okay. And it was, Senator Kirsten Sinema signed off on sweeping Democratic legislation Thursday that would provide new spending to mitigate climate change and extend healthcare access while taxing corporations. And it was a last-minute move that she made. There was an amendment. We'll get to that here in just a second. There's an amendment one of the Republicans introduced that she latched onto. Now, the legislation called the Inflation Reduction Act, Reduction Act, now heads to the House, which plans to return from its summer recess on Friday, passed the legislation and sent it to President Joe Biden's desk for his signature. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said it's been a long, tough, and winding road. It's been a long, tough, and winding road. But at last, we have arrived. I know it's been a long day and a long night, but we've gotten it done today. Quote, after more than a year of hard work, the Senate is making history. I'm confident the Inflation Reduction Act will endure as one of the defining legislative feats of the 21st century. Okay, that's very good messaging also, calling it the Inflation Reduction Act. It gets right to the heart of what it does. Now, the 755-page bill, includes $430 billion to combat climate change and extend healthcare coverage, okay, to combat climate change and extend healthcare coverage. Paid for with savings on prescription drugs and taxes on corporations. It puts hundreds of billions of dollars toward deficit reduction. Once again, no Republicans in the Senate voted for this bill. They yell and scream about inflation. When it comes time to do something about inflation, they vote against the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. The 755-page bill includes $433 billion to combat climate change and extend healthcare coverage, and is paid for with savings on prescription drugs and taxes on corporations. It puts hundreds of billions of dollars toward deficit reduction. Now, the bulk of the spending, more than $300 billion, covers investments to tackle climate change and boost clean energy, including incentives for farmers and ranchers to reduce methane emissions, an extension of the electric vehicle tax credit, and the launch of a national climate bank that would make investments in clean energy technologies and energy efficiency. Okay, the legislation would empower Medicare to negotiate prices with drug companies for the first time in history, cutting prescription drug prices for people 65 years and older. That's huge. That helps bring down their monthly expenditures. This is one of the ways this helps address inflation, by bringing down costs. The savings would help pay for a 3-year extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which would stave off an expected rise in insurance premiums that were set to go into effect in 2023. This deals with how politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. This impacts how much people have to spend each month. This impacts how much those 65 and older have to spend each month. This impacts businesses. This impacts the economy. Now, the package includes a cap on the price of insulin for those 65 years and older on Medicare, but Republicans successfully removed a $35 cap on insulin in the private market. Their argument was, and the Senate parliamentarian, who's like a referee in the Senate, agreed with them that that part of the legislation did not pass the Senate budget reconciliation process, did not qualify to go through the Senate budget reconciliation process, which allows this bill to be passed by a simple majority in the Senate, as opposed to having to meet the 60 vote threshold, which means it had to break the filibuster. Okay, so you can come back and you can get that passed in January, February 2023, after Democrats maintain control of the Senate and expand their margin in the Senate and pick up 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 Senate seats. Okay. And then you can do a carve out to the filibuster, or you can change the rules to the filibuster and go back to at least a standing talking filibuster, where you have to hold the Senate floor, like in the movie starring Jimmy Stewart. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and you had to talk continuously on the Senate floor and bring people over to your side. Okay, as opposed to just being able to call in from your Senate office or the country club and tell the Senate majority leader that you want to filibuster a bill. You have filibuster abuse because it's too easy to use the filibuster rule now. Now, the bill also raises revenue through a new 15% minimum tax on large corporations. Though accelerated depreciation would be exempted, a key ask of centrist Senator Kyrsten Sinema, Democrat from Arizona, who extracted several tax changes from leadership before getting on board with the package. Okay, but still, even though those tax changes were made, she still got on board, still voted for the bill. No Republican in the Senate voted for the bill. Kyrsten Sinema also successfully killed a provision to close the carried interest tax loophole. The carried interest tax loophole that benefits private equity and hedge fund managers. It was replaced with Sinema's support by a 1% excise tax on stock buybacks that actually pulls in more revenue than the carried interest provision would have. It actually pulls in more revenue. The change that Kyrsten Sinema made will actually pull in more revenue than the carried interest provision would have. But you can close the carried interest tax loophole in January or February 2022, after Democrats maintain control of the Senate and expand their lead in the Senate and run for re-election in the November 2022 midterm elections based upon the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 and the American Rescue Plan that you got passed and signed into law in March 2021, and the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that you got passed and signed into law in November 2021, and the new gun reform laws that you got passed and signed into law, and the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill that you got passed for the first time in 122 years, and over 70 plus federal judge nominations, many of them African-American women, and Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson being made the first African-American female to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, and the executive order dealing with policing, police reform at the federal level, and all the other things, 9 million jobs created in the Biden-Harris administration, 3.5% unemployment, 528,000 jobs created in the month of July 2022. You run on your record. You run on all this stuff that you got accomplished. You don't sit up and whine and cry about what you did not get accomplished. You run on what you got accomplished, and it's a whole lot that they've gotten accomplished in these 18 months or so of the Biden-Harris administration. You do not compare Democrats to perfection. You do not compare them to the almighty. You compare them to the alternative. The alternative is Republicans, because that's what you'll get if Republicans take back control of the House and the Senate. And Republicans voted against overwhelmingly almost all these bills. No Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that added additional funding for schools so they could reopen, and had about $360 billion for public workers and public safety and police departments, fire department, EMS, teachers, things like this. No Republican in the House or the Senate voted for that $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. When it came time to rescue America and rescue America from COVID-19 and the economy, the COVID-19 economy, every Republican voted against that bill. 147 of those Republican traitors voted to invalidate the 2022 presidential election votes and the electoral college votes for Joe Biden. There's 139 in the House and 8 in the Senate. Voted not to validate, not to certify the election results. And then when it came time to vote to rescue America, every last one of those traitors in the House and the Senate voted against the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. So you can't, on the one hand, say you love America, but on the other hand, you side with the coup plotters and those who try to overthrow the government, and you vote not to certify the election results. And then when it comes time to vote to save America and the economy because of the COVID-19 crisis, you vote against the American Rescue Plan. This is an example of how elections have consequences. Also, incidentally, no Republican in the House of Representatives voted for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act either. That bill passed the House of Representatives in March of 2021 by a vote of 220 to 212. All the Republicans voted against the bill. The one Republican who voted for the bill said he made a mistake and was going to change his vote. All right, so read the rest of this article here from NBC News. Senate passes sweeping climate, health, and tax package, putting Democrats on cusp of historic win. It's expected to pass the House of Representatives. This is going to be huge for Democrats to run on for the 2022 midterm elections. This is an example of how elections have consequences. This is a good bill. No, it's not perfect. No, it's not a perfect bill, but you don't sacrifice a good bill because you can't get a perfect bill. Okay? You get this passed, come back and get the rest of what you want after January 2023. All right. If you like information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Cash App, the TheAHNShow through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow. This helps us stay on the air, keep doing the research, pay the bills, finance the research, pay for all these services I use, all these news outlets I subscribe to as well. So this helps us keep doing the research. And we have the information at our website also, our new website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can also register for the online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays, normally Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Sundays, we do that normally 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You don't have to be present in class. You can see me. I can't see you. As soon as you register, you can watch the archived classes. We're doing a special session on Tuesday, August 9th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time of Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay. So email us at ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com. If you've taken any of my online classes in the past, you get a 50% discount also. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behaviors, not over till we win, Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time.